Hi and welcome to the Microsoft Teams webinar for Sharp Electronics. We're going to give it 30 seconds for people to log on. You should be practiced at this now. We practiced on our IoT webinar on Monday. So thank you for joining us. I'll give it another 20 or 30 seconds before we start our presentation today. Okay, so thanks very much for joining the Microsoft Teams webinar. It says you've got Charlotte Edwards there. It's not actually Charlotte is going to be here in a second, but I better start with myself. I'm Jane Hammersley, and thanks for joining this. Okay, let's stop sharing. Start again. Okay. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Oh, it's going well this morning. Right, I'm going to start sharing again. Okay, I'm hoping you can. Charlotte, can you see the Teams webinar first screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, I'll introduce myself, Jane Hammersley from Maverick, and Charlotte Edwards, and we're going to talk to you today about Microsoft Teams. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I just wanted to start and tell you a couple of things about the webinar. So let's move on here. There is no silly questions during this, so we would like to ask you for your feedback and your questions throughout. Use the questions and answer box at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so ask questions throughout, and when we come to the end, we will answer them all. But this is the start of your journey, so please let us help you along that journey with Teams, IoT, and anything else Microsoft related. Today we're talking about Teams. And Teams is a complete platform of communication. It combines chat, video meetings, a place to store files, and most importantly then to go and find that information with your colleagues, and integrate other applications as well. And it sits on Office 365 subscription. So it sits in the cloud, which means you can access this information wherever you are. And it does integrate with other non-Microsoft products, and Charlotte's going to tell you a little bit more about that later. I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes to kind of position why we're talking about this. I just want to check, Charlotte, can you see the changing modern workforce screen?
Yes, I can, yeah.
All right, lovely. So I think we all know that the way we work is changing. Certainly, I work from home. Charlotte probably does as well. More and more people are working remotely out of the office than ever. And statistics show that up to 60–70% of us will spend at least 1 or 2 days of our week working outside of a traditional office environment, which means the tools that we now have to work with need to work wherever we are. And this is that whole modern workplace and the digital transformation. And there are some stats on the screen there which are quite unbelievable. So as an employee, we spend 80% of our time actually collaborating. So that could be in meetings, at our desk, on phones, video chat, or just persistent chat, instant message. And of course, that is, you know, that's a lot more than we ever used to do because we've got the tools to do it. In fact, stats say it's twice as much as 5 years ago. When we come on to meetings, we know that a lot of the meetings that we have now include at least one remote attendee, and the stat says 56%. I probably would say that's more, whether they're coming in on a video chat or a telephone remote participant. And it says there 15% of meeting rooms are equipped for video. It's actually probably less than that have got the right equipment to have a good video enabled meeting, which is why we're talking about Teams, and it's why we're talking about WCD, because those two things fit together. Okay, so Charlotte, I'm going to hand over to you now. Let me stop sharing. Find my meeting controls.
I can start sharing.
Yeah. Bear with me a second. I just lost the meeting controls. So we're actually working at the moment in Zoom because it's a platform that Tech Data have adopted, and we can actually do a video meeting in Teams as well. At the moment, we're just using Zoom. Just bear with me a second. One of my meeting controls. There we go. Okay, Charlotte, you're able to share.
Brilliant. Oops. There we go.
So just to confirm, while Charlotte's sharing, you won't be able to talk during this webinar. It is just a one-way only, but I encourage you to put your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom, and then we'll be able to answer all the questions at the end. As I said, there's no silly questions. Please put them in and we'll come to them at the end. Okay, thanks, Charlotte.
Can we see this all right? Is that?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, as Jane said, Teams is an all-up collaboration tool integrating with pretty much all of the Office 365 products that sit under that umbrella. And there's not a lot, well, there's a lot of other products that we have in Office 365 other than what your standard user would think. So obviously you've got Word, Publisher, PowerPoint, which is what a lot of customers think that Office 365 is. And Teams, hopefully, in this click-through demo that I've got here, will show you some of the other products that we've got in Microsoft and Office 365 that integrate in Teams and that we can all be using at the same time across the Office 365 suite. So this dashboard here is what you'd see typically when you log into Teams. This is what my team use on a day-to-day basis. So I'm part of the Microsoft CSP team. We work with resellers across the country. A lot of us work from home, me in particular, and so my team members can call me from this platform. They can upload files, we can work on the same files at the same time. Whatever we want to do, it's so easy to get work done on a day-to-day basis and talk to whoever I want whenever I need to. So this is a fully populated demo tenant that I'm going to click through, and I am today. I'm someone called Megan. So this is something that Microsoft have produced. It's a fully populated tenant with a load of information, and it's really useful for me because I can show you a fully populated tenant and exactly how it would work on a day-to-day basis. So Megan is a part of a marketing team, just to give you a bit of background, and they're launching a new product. So she's got loads of meetings set up, loads of different files that she needs to access, Power BI dashboards. Power BI is, as I say, is another service under the Office 365 umbrella. So on the right hand side here, you can see that we've got Presence, which is integrated into the console. So Megan can select whether she doesn't want to be disturbed, if she's busy, she is appearing away. So that will populate across all of the services in Office 365. So say she's using another service, it will also, so say she's available, it will also populate in another service. On the left hand side here, you've got your teams. And so X1050 launch team is the team, and underneath you've got all the different channels. So you can add and remove people, can leave the team, edit the team, get links to the team, and you can customize this exactly how you want. So you can be members of many a different team, but if you aren't particularly involved in a team, you can favorite different teams to make sure your dashboard appears with the most relevant information that what you're working on. It's best to, when you're setting this up, create a team and then underneath it a lot of different channels rather than creating a lot of different teams, because we, especially my team in the past, have had a situation where you get a bit of sprawl, people creating teams all over the place. It does take a little bit of management, but the best way of doing it we've found is, and this is how Microsoft would suggest you doing it as well, is create a team, then underneath that team different channels depending on, so at the top there we've got X1050, so general design, go-to-market plan, launch event, legal and compliance. So depending on which channel you're most involved in, which conversations you're most involved in, you would favourite one of those, or you would unfavourite one of those if you are no longer involved in that area of the project. So she's removed that and followed a different channel. So I'd like, for lack of a better word, I personally think the whole interface is very much like Facebook. So you'd have strings of conversation underneath as specific replies to that. You can integrate with GIFs, you can do inline translation, integrates with many of the apps we've got in Office 365. So you've got OneNote, you've got Planner, Stream, even third-party apps like Trello, Wiki as well. There's even a store, and there's a demonstration at the end of all the different third-party apps that you can integrate into Teams. You can also, instead of using the left-hand side, you can use a box at the top. So this is using things like, so there's typed in launch at the top, and from that, you can see everything that says launch on the left-hand side. And then that will go through anything that's been involved with that. You see that there's a red exclamation mark there as well on the feed. So that indicates that something is particularly important. Also, Megan can see, I'll go back a little bit. There's an at as well, an at mention. So anytime Megan has been mentioned, the little at the side will come up to indicate that that's something that she needs to flag or be involved in or take another look at. In addition, at the top, you can use slash commands. So if you put a slash at the top and then underneath, you can see that there's loads and loads of different commands that come up. And then on the right-hand side, they explain what those commands do. So go to, we've selected it. She wants to go to that launch team. This is instead of having to, on the left-hand side, sometimes when there's so many teams, you can lose where you are. I mean, this can have up to 2,500 people. So if there's a lot of people involved in this Teams, then the left-hand side can get quite messy. So sometimes using the search box at the top is actually a quicker method of navigating Teams. Manage your team, add and remove people. So here we're adding another guest. As you can see, it's very much a stream like as I say, on Facebook. Inline translation. People that don't necessarily speak Japanese. You can add a subject. So here they're talking about what they've achieved in January. If she's marked it as important, she's tagging in the people that have been most involved in the success of the January milestones being reached. And she's integrating GIFs with that. Makes it less formal, more personal. You can also have an email address for the team. So say one member of the team gets an email that they think would be specifically important to the rest of the team, they can just forward that email on to this email address for the team and it will appear in the feed. I've also got one-on-one chats, or you can start a new chat with a group of people, exactly like you would do on Facebook. I know I keep mentioning it, but it is ridiculously similar. You can then retrospectively add somebody else to that chat. You can include all of the conversation that's been had, or just the conversation up to date. So here Megan's adding another team member. So this is the app that you can download for your mobile, and it's got all of the same features that you would do with the client. You can see what Megan posted there earlier. You see the team there, the team that she's mainly involved in, with all the channels underneath it. So this is your calling capability. You can do that from the console as well. You can do it from the app on a phone. You can blur your background when you're on camera. You can pass calls on to people. You can hold calls. There's a bit more of a demo on that later on. You can also record your calls. So here, this has been posted to the feed, a meeting that was recorded, and potentially somebody couldn't make it. So it's posted to the feed, and then they can go and watch that back as and when they have time to do so. Start recording, and then at the top, it should say you're recording. So everybody there in the meeting knows that's being recorded. So at the side here, we've got integration with OneNote. So you can take notes as and when the meeting's going on. You can also share articles from the internet, in this case Wikipedia, which will get posted to the team feed. So this is a recording of one of the meetings. It has recorded the voice of whoever's speaking at the time. It saved that as metadata, and it then will use subtitles at the bottom to say exactly what's been said in the meeting. That can then be searched, actually. So wherever Megan's name's been mentioned, right, Megan in the top, and instead of having to trawl through the entirety of the 15.5 minutes of the meeting, she can go, she knows that at 9 minutes and 1 second, her name was mentioned, and she can scroll to 9 minutes and 1 second and know exactly what was going on and why she was being mentioned there. At this point, it says, let's touch base with them back at the office. This integrates with your calendar in your Outlook. So setting up a meeting, just as you would do in your Outlook and your email. Invite whoever you want, time, date, and schedule a meeting through Teams. You don't have to go out of the application, go into your Outlook client, schedule a meeting. It can all be done from the Teams console. Got speed dial of people that you regularly call as well. That also is the case on the mobile app. So in this case, you use the slash command of call Alex, and immediately that's what happens. You can set up rules as well, around rules and policies around forwarding calls, answering calls if you're busy. So the presence will integrate with that as well. So say if your status is busy, it will notify the person that you're trying to call somebody that is busy. Lets you know that somebody's calling you. You can also park calls, put calls on hold, transfer calls. And as I mentioned before, start a video with blurred background. So say you're in a particularly busy area, you don't want people seeing whatever's in the background because it can be quite distracting. You can blur that background, and then whoever's on the other end of the phone can just focus on you and what you're saying. So in this case, the call's been parked, and they'll be picking that back up in 10 minutes. So that call's been forwarded. So you can consult somebody before forwarding somebody on. So in this case, Megan is being consulted here. So you have a call, should I connect you? Megan says yes, and that call is forwarded on. And then Megan will receive that call. So this is the files section, the storage section essentially of Teams. So me and my team, whenever I go out and I deliver training to our partners, part of the agreement with Microsoft is that we have to upload any evidence of that interaction with a partner. We use Teams here to say this is the evidence from this day, and it's modified by each of us, and at the side it says I know that this file was last modified by Megan on this date. You can also roll back to previous versions if you wanted a previous version. There's a list of every interaction. When you go into, say, the PowerPoint at the top, you can see at this date it was modified, at this date, and there's a list of modifications that have been made. So if you made or somebody's made a modification that you don't quite like, you can roll back to an older version of the document. Integrate with PowerPoint, Excel, SharePoint. You can move, copy, download, delete, rename, get links to that. So instead of having to actually send somebody a document, you just send somebody a link to the document. You can use OneDrive as well. So instead of actually having to upload everything to the Teams console, you could just use and connect it to OneDrive. So if you're storing all your files in OneDrive instead, I can go to my OneDrive, find what I'm looking for, and upload a copy. And then here she's tagging Isaiah because he's the one that's requested this. You can also use cloud storage, so third-party apps like Box, Dropbox. You can use SharePoint as well, Microsoft, as part of Office 365. You can integrate those third-party apps and use those as storage instead if you're not using OneDrive. We've got inline interaction with Word here. You've got the same with PowerPoint, Excel, as you'll see in a minute. So you can actually edit the documents without having to download the document from Teams, open it up in Word, and then re-upload it back into Teams. You just you'd edit it in the console. Make this a tab. So the tab's at the top. It's really easy just to, if you've got a document like this, make it a tab. So they've made this monthly report a tab. Again, there's the Excel screen shows up in the console, so you don't have to go out and back in. Power BI is really useful, and actually, so Power BI, the only way I could really describe it is to use all the graphing capabilities of Excel instead of having to show a customer or whoever you're talking to, whoever you've got a meeting with, a really, really complicated spreadsheet that's not very nice to look at. You can use all the graphing capabilities and show much more user-friendly version of the data, so it's very easy to visualize what's going on with this data rather than showing somebody a spreadsheet, and that integrates really, really seamlessly with Teams, as you can see here. So they've made that a tab in this situation. Planner is another useful one. Planner is also an Office 365 app. So in this situation, you're assigning a task to somebody, you're putting a deadline on that task. So Megan's being assigned this task. It's in progress. So this is Trello. This is a third-party app, so you can upload stuff to there as well. Bing's another one in this case. So they've got integrations with Trello and Bing in this case. And search Bing, search at the top, it will come up with articles from Bing, and then that can be posted to the group. Going back to Planner, you can see all of the completed actions, all of the actions that are in progress, and all of the actions that aren't started. So everybody in that team can see what is their responsibility, what have they completed, and what have they got in progress, and what do they need to continue working on. Disco is a third-party app. It's a way of showing appreciation for somebody's work. In this case, Megan's giving Isaiah some appreciation, the fact that he's helped towards a project. You can actually even show a leaderboard of who's had more praise than other people. So this is a list. It's not an exhaustive list of the third-party apps that teams can integrate with as well. If you've got other non-Microsoft applications that you use quite frequently, they can be integrated with this as well. And that's the end of my click-through demonstration. Are there any questions?
Awesome, thank you, Charlotte. That's great. We do have some questions come in actually. In fact, just one question from me. Do you want to stop sharing, Charlotte, and we can see you? You mentioned at the start of your demonstration a tenant.
Yes.
Now, what is a tenant?
So hold on, let me stop sharing.
Sometimes it's difficult.
Essentially, it's an Office 365 account.
Right, okay. You're going to start. Sometimes it's difficult to find the controls at the bottom of the screen, isn't it? Your Zoom controls.
Doesn't let me do it.
Okay, while you're finding, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's some Zoom controls that come up, hit your Zoom button.
Stop share, there we go. There we go.
Awesome. So explain tenant, because it's when I looked at the explanation on the internet, it says something like, imagine it's an apartment, and in the apartment you've got sub apartments, and
so there's not just Office 365 in the Microsoft portfolio. So you've got Office 365, you've got Microsoft 365, you've got the security piece, you've got Dynamics, which is another product, a CRM type product, and you've got Azure, which is the cloud platform that Microsoft have. So instead of having different accounts for each different product, you have a tenant. So my overarching tenant for you'll have one as well as part of Tech Data. So my tenant for us would be charlotte.edwards@techdata.com. As part of that, I will have access to Office 365 account, my Azure account. So it's an overarching credentials for many of the different Microsoft products. Right.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. A couple more questions, and then I'm going to just jump back into a couple more slides. Dawn, thank you. There are some similar platforms available. What makes Teams unique or different? And can you give us some comparisons to the other workflow platforms that are out there?
I'm not particularly familiar with many of the other workflow platforms that are out there, but the way I like to see it is, and the way my life's been growing up, I haven't used any other Office package other than Microsoft, and I know there'll be many other people out there who say the same. They've never used another word processing application, they've never used PowerPoint and anything other than PowerPoint, and it's all seamlessly integrated into one console. You don't have to go out and back in and have multiple different tabs open. It's all there in one screen.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm the same actually. What I would say about Teams, for those of you who have tried anything else, there are others out there. There's Slack. In fact, Zoom calls itself a workflow platform. There are quite a few others, but research suggests that 70% of all enterprise customers are using Microsoft as their backbone. And if you're using Microsoft as your backbone, you will automatically use and migrate to Teams. Charlotte, can you tell us anything about the Skype to Teams migration?
at the minute, so previously we've had a Skype client and we've had a Teams client. And the idea from Microsoft is they want to push everybody with a Skype for Business client into Teams. That's Microsoft's idea, is that it's a nirvana of one console, that everything's there. You don't have to have all these different applications over and jump between them. It's just all there. Everything's there that you need to be productive in whatever you're doing. So Skype for Business will be forcibly moved into Teams. That should be completed over the next 18 months. At the minute, there's 3 modes you can use. You can use it in. So you can have Skype only, where you still have the Skype client. Have Islands mode, which is you use Skype and Teams in conjunction with each other. What will be happening is that most people will go to Teams only mode. So that will mean that the Skype capability will be cut off, but the functionality will be available in Teams.
Right, got it. So
it depends on the size of your business, actually, at the minute. So anybody below 500 users, their Skype client will be disappearing.
In fact, I think it's gone. I think any organisation below 500 seats, their Skype has disappeared, and it's forcibly migrated to Teams. Thank you, Microsoft. So kind of overnight, but it's a good thing, you know.
It is a good thing.
People kind of use the stuff you're familiar with, right? And that's naturally how we work. And if you don't look at something different or know there's something different out there, you tend not to change. Larger enterprises, as you rightly say, Charlotte, there'll be a migration path from Skype for Business to Teams. Okay, some more technical questions that you'll be able to answer immediately. Can anybody add or remove members from a team, or is there some admin hierarchy?
So in your tenant, there is admin hierarchy depending on your rank. I don't know another word to use, but so a global admin will have 65 tenant, and you can use role-based access controls at each individual level to say who has what permissions to do what.
Yeah,
so that's something you set up at a tenant level, and if you didn't have the in-house capability to do that yourself, you'd contract someone to help you with that.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I have to say, we use Teams in our organisation, and not forcibly, I might add. We chose to do that, and by working with it every day, you soon learn how to navigate around Teams. And Charlotte showed you a very comprehensive demonstration there. But you start off small. We started off by a couple of teams with some channels in there, which is kind of those subcategories, and then you create your teams within those. So as an administrator or as an owner, I can bring people in. I can also make other people owners. So it means that it's not just my responsibility. I found that out the hard way, by the way. Okay, just another quick question about integration. Does Teams integrate with Outlook in any way?
It's not got email in it at the minute. That's the only thing that it's not got in, I believe, but that is coming. It will be in an update. Yeah.
So I think what Microsoft is trying to do with Teams is move people away from the drug of email, which would be great for me. Because, you know, we live and survive on email, but actually wouldn't it be great if rather than looking at email that came through chronologically, we actually looked at our information and put it into a more consolidated and easy to view viewpoint. So all your chats are in the same place, so all the thread of the conversation is in the same place, which is what Teams is trying to do.
Exactly.
Another question, operator console for Skype, question mark. Don't know what that means. Do you know what that means?
I don't know.
Okay, and that's come from, that's an interesting one, Trey. So Trey, if you want to ask that again in another way, then we'll try and answer that for you. And Eric has said, what's the difference between Kazala and Teams? I'm afraid I've never heard of Kazala.
Something I've heard of.
Okay, so Eric, that's something we'll try and take away from.
Yeah, I can take that offline and then come back to anyone who's got questions that we can't answer now.
Okay, wonderful. External teams, can you connect stroke federate to Skype on-prem?
Skype on-prem. I assume it's not something I've particularly looked into, but I assume that it will all move into Teams anyway, so it'll all end up under the Office 365 umbrella. I think that, well, actually, I know that the standalone Skype for Business SKUs are even being ousted as well, so you can't just buy Skype for Business on its own. It is under the Office 365 umbrella.
Great. Yeah, no, from what I know and talking to Microsoft, all the development and all the future funding will go into Teams.
Yeah.
There'll be nothing more going into Skype, and there will be, and I suspect it will be years to move it across, but there will be a complete migration to Teams.
It's 18 months apparently. So I was at Microsoft Ignite in London in March, and the two big things that they were going on about, it was everywhere, was Teams and was security.
Wow.
It's just, they're mad on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, integration with a ticketing system. I suspect that means some kind of IT support system, does it?
Yeah, so as part of an Office 365 customer, and whoever you've bought that license through, say you buy it through a reseller who have to go through distribution. It depends on how you've bought that license as to how your support system works. For us, we're an indirect CSP provider, so if an end user had an issue, they'd raise a ticket with their reseller, who'd raise a ticket with us, and we provide first and second line support to that. Anything that's third line support is raised automatically to Microsoft themselves.
Okay. All right, wonderful, thank you. Another question. So thanks very much for your questions, guys. This is brilliant. Keep them coming. Keep Charlotte on her toes. Can you add links and not just files into Teams? So can you add a link to say a PowerPoint file or a website or something like that?
Yeah, I believe you can. Yeah.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, you can share links. Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
If it says stored in OneDrive or wherever you've stored that, you can post a link to that file from OneDrive. So you can go into OneDrive, say this is the link to this file, and post that in the team.
Okay, brilliant. Yes, thank you. Dawn, another great question, and this is going to test you, Charlotte. Can you add users that are not part of your own company into your Teams chats?
Yeah, so we've got, in our teams, we've got some of the guys from Microsoft itself in our team. So they use it as well as us. Okay,
and can you just add them in straight away? Is there any?
I think you have to be invited. It's an invitation. So whoever's in control of the team will invite that third party member. Okay. So the guys from Microsoft that are aligned to us from a business point of view, in order to look after the progression of their business through us, that they're part of, and they integrate with us on Teams.
Perfect. Right. Thank you. Now, this is a package I'm not familiar with. Can the Teams planning console be customized such as the feature availabilities in Jira, Jira?
It's not an application I'm particularly familiar with. I'm sorry.
Okay. Matt, thanks for the question. Let us find out the answer to that one. It's not something that either of us are familiar with on that one, I'm afraid. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen quickly here, because we have got some more questions. Charlotte, I just want to be sure that you can see my Microsoft Teams screen.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect, okay. Guys, you've put in some great questions here. Thanks very much. And just to sort of round up, please still put your questions in if you have any. What Charlotte went through there was a comprehensive demonstration of how Teams operates. And I can tell you personally how I use Teams. I dip in and dip out of it all day. I communicate with colleagues, do a private chat, so just a one-to-one and then a one-to-many. So there's lots of us in our team group, and I can put information in there. In fact, Charlotte, I learned a lot from you in that webinar, because I didn't realize you could roll back to previous versions of files, for example. So thanks for that. But all of that information then is kept, and you can scroll back. You can highlight people if you want an answer from a particular person, or you want to call them out. I didn't know that kudos thing was in there either, so that's great. I'm going to use that more. We do use the other apps within Teams, not as much as we probably will do and should do, but that's coming as we learn how to use Teams. This is not something you put in on Monday and by Tuesday you're fully using. It's very extensive. There's a lot to it, and I kind of think you learn as you go along. Not really using any third-party apps. We do use Power BI to pretty up our Excel files, but beyond that, we don't use the third-party applications much. But I do use it on mobile as well. So I have my Teams app on here. I can do Teams calls. I can chat with people wherever I am. So I'm not stuck to using it on my desktop. So, this goes through a whole build. I'm just going to call out some things that are really, really, for me personally, massively interesting. The first one, and Charlotte mentioned it, is whiteboard integration. I cannot tell you how much excitement there is around Microsoft Whiteboard. It's a free app. Go and download it. Microsoft Whiteboard is going to be intrinsic to many new features that are coming out, and it's embedded into Teams. And that second box you see there with the video going on, the intelligent capture, the whole digital transformation message comes alive with Whiteboard. You can see the guy writing on an analog whiteboard there, and there's a Logitech Brio camera actually pointing on him. This you can do live in Teams, right? You don't have to do it in Teams, but it can be live in Teams. And then you could take that information that he's writing on the board there in an analog format, i.e. just a dry white marker pen, and you can digitize it. It's absolutely amazing. And then it sits in your whiteboard as a digital file, which you can then edit. I mean, it is the future. It really is bringing analog into the digital world. The latest Teams feature is proximity meeting join. If I've got a Teams meeting here, I walk into a meeting room that's got Microsoft enabled equipment in it and Skype certified equipment. It knows who I am because it recognizes my Teams from my mobile client, and it automatically joins me to that meeting. And then Charlotte mentioned it, the customized background. I think we've all seen the video of the guy on the BBC whose children run into him while he's on a BBC interview, which is embarrassing for him, but funny for everybody else. If he'd had that customized blurred background, we wouldn't have seen all that. We wouldn't have had such a laugh. Now, we've had a couple of questions in from Thomas and Chris about devices, so Teams devices. There are a huge amount of either Skype certified devices or Teams enabled devices. If it's a Teams enabled device specifically, it will have a Teams button on it. So currently there are headsets, desk phones, mobile phone stations, speaker pucks, conference room phones, Microsoft Teams rooms that all have Teams buttons on them. So literally you can press a button and be straight into your Teams meeting. Now we're talking obviously specifically about Windows collaboration displays, and that's the Sharp product that we're very much looking forward to in the middle of the year. Now, whilst that won't have a Teams button on it, the WCD will be Skype certified, which means it meets the really high standards that Microsoft set to have a good meeting, have a great meeting experience. So it's great audio, it's great video, and it's great speakers. So that was one of the questions, and Thomas asks, Is it device agnostic? Teams is an application, so it basically sits on either a desktop or a mobile client. Is it device agnostic? Well, yes and no. Yes, it sits on a PC, so it'll sit on any PC. When you come to talk about it into the meeting space, which is where we're interested in, it needs to sit on a Skype certified product to ensure the best meeting room experience. And when you come down to here, which is a Teams room, you have a device that sits on the meeting room table that is locked down to Skype or Teams. And that, when I say locked down, you can't do anything else on that interactive device but use it for Skype or Teams. And for us specifically, that's great for WCD, because you can have a Microsoft Teams rooms on the center of the table and link straight to the WCD at front of room. I'm going to share this presentation with you and Charlotte's at the end, but I've put some great links on here. There's more training to be had. There's lots of training online. So there's a link there to take you through to a Microsoft training area. There's some more information on Microsoft Whiteboard. I really encourage you to download and use that. And more information here on the journey of Skype to Teams migration. So you'll have this at the end of the session. Just some more information there quickly on what is Teams and what is specifically Whiteboard in Teams meeting. You know, I'm pretty excited about that Whiteboard feature. It's a free application, and I think it really is going to be a game changer in the way that we work. And then when we look at Microsoft 365, these are all the things that link into the main WCD, which is what we're talking about here in the middle. So we've got Microsoft Teams rooms, and we've got Microsoft Surface Hub that will be out soon, and then we've got the Sharp WCD in the middle there. So massively important to what we do. Okay, right, I'm kind of done there now. So I'm just going to quickly go back to the questions. We've done the diagnostic one. BYOD. Okay, brilliant. I think we've done all the questions. If we haven't, and you got a question that you would like to ask us, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself at the end of this. I'm working with Chris Parker really closely, Birgit, Jason and the team, and Ian. So reach out to any of us and ask us questions. I will be sending everybody the link to this video so you can watch it again. But Charlotte, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for taking us through Teams. That was brilliant. And look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks very much. Thanks, Charlotte. Bye.
Bye.